What's up, everybody? Jeff C. back here with another series of book reviews. Sorry it's been so long since my last video. I've been honestly, I just haven't felt like lugging stuff out to the park. It's been pretty hot, and I just really haven't been feeling like coming out and doing them. Hey, you all right?
How you doing?
I'm good. So the weather's getting better, and so I'm gonna get back out here and keep doing this, at least until I get one of those cool book walls to sit in front of in my house. But good news is I've been reading. I've read 8 books since my last video, so I'm gonna talk about them each just briefly. That's another reason why I want to be able to, why I need to get out here more consistently, is because it's just, my recall will be better, just like anybody, of course. So that being said, let's dive into the 8 books that I have read. I hope you all have been reading some good books, and I'd love to hear about them down in the comments. So the first book that I want to talk about that I read was The Hobbit. Yes, finally read The Hobbit. I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.25 stars. And you know, that was kind of, when I finished it and I was gonna make a video about it, I was, I'm just in my head, I'm like, well, what am I gonna say about The Hobbit that hasn't been said 1,000 times? And even now, I don't really feel like I have anything much to add to it. I mean, it was a good book. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend you read it. I think anybody who's especially loves reading should do it. I mean, it's a great read. It's not, it's not hard to read. It's not a lot of weird vocabulary. And I feel like there were some pretty major characters in it that I don't remember seeing in the movie. So some of you younger folks might just be more familiar with the movies, and I feel like there was one, especially, if I think about like a bear, that guy, like I don't remember him being in the movie. So I really enjoyed it. Again, 4.25 stars. Bilbo Baggins goes on a adventure with Gandalf and 13 dwarves. Really cool. Again, 4.25 stars for The Hobbit. I highly recommend you read it. The next book that I read, and also I didn't drag these books out here with me just because I didn't want to bring 8 books. I did bring the 2 books that I gave 5 stars to with me. So I'll just be putting, as you saw with The Hobbit, I'll just be putting the pictures up here on the screen. And I do post all these to Instagram, and I have been staying up with that, so please feel free to follow me on Instagram. The next book that I read was Before the Coffee Gets Cold, which I really enjoyed. I kind of used it as a little break because I knew I had something pretty big coming up after this, so I wanted to read something that was easy. It was only like 250 pages. I mean, you can really read it in a couple of sittings or a couple of days. I gave it a 4.0 stars. It was nice. So Before the Coffee Gets Cold talks about a little coffee shop that's kind of in an alleyway in Japan, and there's only 4 tables there, and you can go there, and there's one seat that's always kind of occupied. But every once in a while, the person that's in the seat gets up to go to the bathroom, and if you sit in that seat while they're gone and have a cup of coffee poured for you, you can travel back in time, or travel in time. And there's a few caveats. I don't want to give them all away, but there's a few rules that you have to follow. Now, obviously, one of the rules is you must return before the coffee gets cold, or you have to drink it all. Once you finish your cup, you'll go back. But there's a lot of cool themes in the book, as you talk about broken relationships. There's like a nurse who talks about duty versus desire. There's a wife who has to kind of deal with her husband's ailing memory. And so there was a lot of cool little stories. I will say I would have liked a little more insight into the origin of the person who's sitting in the chair that allows the time travel to happen. However, I do have it on good faith that that issue kind of gets talked about and further along in the series. So I plan on reading that series more a little later. So the reason I wanted to read Before the Coffee Gets Cold as a palate cleanser was because the next series I was going to read all the way through was the Live Ship Traders trilogy by Robin Hobb. And man, I really liked that trilogy. I love Robin Hobb's writing style. I am fully invested in the realm of the Elderlings. I will probably start the next trilogy, which is the Tawny Man trilogy, sometime in early 2026. And I did read the Farseer trilogy earlier this year. Both my beautiful bride and I have read that, and it was really cool. So book one of the Live Ship Traders trilogy is Ship of Magic. It's 832 pages. I gave it 4.25 stars. Again, I really enjoyed the setup. You're basically following the Vestrit family. There's an Althea Vestrit, and they have a ship called Vivacia who is sentient. And there's other live ships in this world. And so I don't want to give too much away, but basically the ship gets taken over, and it's a whole ordeal to try to not only get the ship back from the person who takes it over, but the world around them, this Beantown, is just starting to get overrun by certain entities. And so that's kind of the first thing you see. What do I have here? I have my little notes down here. Yeah, so basically Vivacia, which is the Vestrit family, there's death, there's some political intrigue going on. It was a really good setup. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Book two is called Mad Ship. I gave it a 4.0 stars. It was 864 pages. Now, I did really like the book. The only thing I would say about it, that the reason I went just a little bit down, is just because there was more political stuff in there. And that wasn't my thing at the time. You know, a little more courtship going on amongst some of the families. However, I did love how you see some minor characters in the first book kind of blossom and they literally grow. And how they end up, you know, having a major part in the series through the second book, through Mad Ship. And so, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that. It was a good segue, a good middle book into the third book of the series. And so the third and final book in the Live Ship Traders trilogy is The Ship of Destiny. Again, I really liked the conclusion of this trilogy. I gave it 4.5 stars. It's 800 pages. So you can see, I mean, you're talking about like over 2,400 pages of reading within the trilogy. So a little palate cleanser earlier that I mentioned was definitely needed. I like that you enter into actual like open conflict. You know, you have live ships fighting each other. You have not only growth amongst several of the main characters, you still, even in this late in the series, you see smaller characters who were basically back of the room children in the first book growing up to be leaders. You know, so that's really cool. And you see the ships develop, the live ship develop. This entire series has dragons in it. It also has serpents that are in the water, and there's a very unique relationship between those two that I thought was pretty original, and I thoroughly enjoyed the way that those two entities interact in the world. You also get knowledge of how the ships actually are sentient, or why they're sentient. And so we kind of get a why early on in the trilogy, but how and where that sentience actually stems from, that gets revealed in this book. And so I really, overall, it's kind of weird because I feel like my average rating for each of the 3 books was like 4.5 or 4.25. But I feel like this might be one of those situations where the sum is greater than the whole of the parts. So like, I kind of just want to say the trilogy is a 5-star. Like, I really recommend it. You don't have to read it in order, but man, I don't know. I'm glad I have. Like, now I'm ready to go into the Tawny Man trilogy, which I will start, like I said, earlier next year. And so, yeah, Robin Hobb knocks it out of the park with this trilogy. So I'm going to keep reading her work, and yeah, we'll see how it goes on the next one. So after Ship of Destiny, I wanted to read another Cormac McCarthy book. I had already read No Country for Old Men, and it was kind of funny. I bought that book in New York, and so my wife and I were in Boston, and I was like, hey, what if we make a tradition of ours, a little micro tradition, if you will. All Cormac McCarthy books that we purchase have to be purchased out of state. So we have to buy it at a local bookstore in a city we're visiting. It's kind of cool. So we were in Boston, and the name of the bookstore slips my mind currently. But I did purchase Child of God by Cormac McCarthy. And yeah, so let's get into that one. It kind of talked about, when you read the blurb, it really talks about just some brutality that happens inside this book. And so you're following a guy named Lester Ballard. He's in rural Tennessee, and just this dude is like, he's missing some cards out of his deck, let's just say. A few crayons aren't in the box. And boy, the further you get into the book, the more just like violent, isolated this guy becomes. He just goes deeper into his depravity. He kind of has a couple of relationships with people that are just kind of, surface level. And boy, he ends up, the next time they run into him, it's not good for them. He lives in caves and abandoned houses, and he's just, I don't know, there's not really much of a plot to the story. You're just kind of following along slice of life, I guess, of a dude just brutalizing an area of the world. So, like I said, the plot wasn't heavy, and it was kind of, just, I don't know, it was okay. 3.5 stars. If somebody said they were thinking about reading it, I would definitely say, yeah, read it. Cormac McCarthy's writing style I like. He has great prose. So I definitely wouldn't say don't read it. I would suggest to read it, but I don't know if it would be the first Cormac McCarthy book I would suggest for somebody to read. So yeah, that was a Child of God. So I am going to Denver. I'll be in Denver at the beginning of December, so I'll probably purchase another Cormac McCarthy book while I'm there. All right, so on to the first of the 2 5-star books that I have read since my last video. Number 1, this is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I have a really cool Easton Press edition that is autographed. Let me see if I can show you this. Comes with a certificate of authenticity. Man, one of my best friends in life, who I'm still great friends with now, he read this a long time ago, and he said it was a great book, and it's been on my radar. But that's just something I do. People I trust, they say, hey man, you should check this thing out. And I'll be like, yes. But I guess I just like the comfort. I don't know, it's weird. Like, especially with music, it's like the comfort. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I just like what I like, and so I listen to what I like over and over, and every once in a while I sprinkle in something new. And so sometimes it literally would be over a decade before I finally oh, let me listen to that thing that so-and-so told me about a long time ago. I don't know. And then I do that whole but I want to talk about it now thing. I don't know. What do you do? I guess better late than never, right? But so, Ender's Game, basically what's happening in here is there's a military threat to Earth, and so gifted children are being basically forced into this program by the military to be trained to defend humanity against like an insect-like race. And so they've pulled this kid, Andrew Ender Wiggins, into the program. And there's some turmoil between like his brother, and then, you know, also as he goes into the program, he's kind of like a very young prodigy, so he has to deal with not only the physical aspects of being super young amongst these older kids, you know, like with bullying and such, but he also has to grow into a leadership role, you know, and so you get to witness that transformation. I do have like one little section that I did kind of annotate. I like this paragraph. I was going to read it real quick and then just, you know, kind of give you a glimpse. So, because I won't let them do it to me, I can't believe you haven't seen through all this crap yet, Ender. But I guess you're young. These other armies, they aren't the enemy. It's the teachers. They're the enemy. They get us to fight each other, to hate each other. The game is everything. Win, win, win. It amounts to nothing. We kill ourselves, go crazy trying to beat each other, and all the time the old bastards are watching us, studying us, discovering our weak points, deciding whether we're good enough or not. Well, good enough for what? I was 6 years old when they brought me here. What the hell do I know? They decided I was right for the program, but nobody ever asked me if the program was right for me. So, yeah, it's worth the read. I do see myself going further into the Ender's Game universe. So I've heard good things about like Speaker for the Dead, and I think Xeno something, I forget the second book. But so yes, 5 stars, Ender's Game, highly recommend. I would suggest anybody read it. I think it's really good even for young people, you know, 10 years of age or older, to check out. So if you have not read Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card, I highly recommend it. From one 5-star book right into another, oh my gosh, I could not believe the one of my favorite booktubers, Josh from Red Fury Books, on his review, I believe that he said something about there being a very high wisdom to sentence ratio, and I could not agree more. Look at the amount of annotations I have in this book. I mean, just so much awesome. This is 12 Notes on Life and Creativity by Quincy Jones. Just, I mean, beyond this book, I mean, what can you... Quincy Jones, just an amazing composer, musician, just responsible for some of the highest points in my personal life, and I'm sure many of y'all's. You might not even realize that he's responsible for some of the things. If you like any of that early Michael Jackson stuff, that's him. That's Quincy Jones producing all of that. I mean, just so much other stuff. 5 stars. I really recommend everybody read 12 Notes by Quincy Jones. I'm gonna look real quick I'll try to pick one of these and I'm gonna read it. Okay, so be right back. All right, so I've found, you know, one thing I like to do on my Facebook page is when I'm reading a book, if I come across a sentence or a couple of sentences that just really strike me, I'll just kind of blankly put those up as a quote. And one, it serves as like, I just want to share it with people that I'm friends with on Facebook. And it also, I know that as the years go by, those will pop up on my memories, so it'll be nice to just kind of see that. So I'm going to read this real quick. It's a whole paragraph, but this is the one I shared on my Facebook page. With the inevitability of hardship in this often broken world, it's important to understand what fills your voids and also where you are projecting yours. The moment you slip into a victim mentality, not only are you faced with having to deal with external problems, but you've also given yourself a whole new set of internal problems that will only stunt your growth as both a human and a creative being. You don't have to let the anguish that has permeated pockets of your life completely take over. I also believe this is why creativity is one of the most beautiful gifts we possess. If utilized properly, not only does it serve as an outlet, but it also holds the power to transform heartache into something beyond a singular sentiment. Dude. 12 Notes, Quincy Jones. Pick it up, buy it, buy a hard copy, buy several and hand them out to people you love or people you don't even know. Really, there's so much good stuff in here. And explore his work, his music, listen to it. Alrighty, finally, the last book that I have just finished. I'll put a picture of it here. I share all these also on my Instagram with my Goodreads and Fable review. You might notice this awesome edition is from the Broken Binding, The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. I really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed the book. I wouldn't say I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it was nice. It was a good story. It was written in 1969, I believe, maybe 67. So I get, there's like a thing, if you read reviews of the book, people always jump to the sexuality of the host world, or almost lack of sexuality, the way that these people exist. And I guess you want to say in the late 60s that weirded a lot of people out. And I know how it could, because especially, people of certain parts of the country or world. But also you already had years of the free love, the hippie movement and all that stuff. So I feel like it shouldn't have been that big of a deal, but whatever. That's me saying it from my perspective, from where I'm now at in life and where society is. But I don't feel like that wasn't the plot of the story. That was just a thing that was kind of a matter-of-fact thing that was about a characteristic of the individuals in the story. So I think that's a really important lesson for people to take. Is your sexuality is not who you are or how you have sex or not. I mean, I know it's a component, but man, there's so much more to you. And so when you really get down to the actual plot of the story, it's basically, it's a guy comes from Earth to another planet trying to get the leaders of that planet to join a more universe-wide coalition. And so, they're reticent. They're not even able to travel into space. So the fact that this guy's just there, not all of the people that he talks to saw his ship when he came in. Of course, some people took it. So it's almost kind of maybe like a parallel to Jesus, where he's trying to spread this message and some people just aren't getting it. And of course, like anybody who's trying to spread a message of hope and change and collaboration and compassion, the people want to try to kill him and hurt him. It's just all right, guys. But, so you basically have him. He has a friend who at first doesn't appear to be a friend, and then he becomes one, and they go on this journey. But I felt like when I read the blurb in the book, it was talking about the journey. But by the time the journey starts, the book was well over halfway over. So I was like, well, all right, we better get to this journey. And they take the journey, and there's something that the main character wanted to accomplish at the end of it. I don't want to say too much, but he kind of accomplished that thing at the fairly end of the book with some consequences, which you expect. And that's all well and good, but man, I wanted to know what would happen on a global scale of this planet he visited as a result of them joining this universal conglomeration. How would it help things? Would it help the factions on the planet that were kind of warring? Would it help them unite? I really was wanting to see that happen. I guess just because, now you always want cooperation. And so, and the more you look online nowadays, especially, the less cooperation you see, regardless of what you see in real life on an individual level. But it was a nice read. It's easy. There were some very good lines in there. I posted one on my Facebook page. Like I said, I didn't write any down. I didn't bring the book with me, but it's not like with any of these books, you can't just Google title of the book and quotes, and then there's going to be some good stuff. I would recommend you check out The Left Hand of Darkness. It is a part of a universe. I believe there's 4 or 5 books in that universe, but they're all standalones. You don't have to read them in order or anything. She has an Earthsea Chronicles. Either it's a trilogy or a quadrilogy. So I enjoyed this book enough to where I'll check out the Earthsea Chronicles at some point. I don't know. I won't say that it's going to be anytime soon, but it's in my TBR, and I would like to check it out in time. So this catches me up. That's the last 8 books that I have read. It is, at the time of this recording of the video, it is October 2nd, 2025, and I started my spooky season read. I'm reading a book for the first time that is 1,153 pages. I set out to read it all within the month of October, which means I needed to average about 38 pages a day, a little less actually. However, yesterday I got to page 136, 35, so we are on course. I don't want to say what that is, but I'm also, on top of that, reading my first manga. So I've always been kind of intrigued by anime and manga, but it's a genre that's so big that I'm like, I don't even know where to start. So another booktuber recommended Uzumaki. I will say this, by Inju Ito. Dang it, I should have wrote it down. Anyway, I'll put the picture of it. So I'm reading that secondary to the main book that I'm reading for. And a really cool thing, my wife and I are reading it together. So she is also reading this book by one of our favorite authors. So I'm looking forward to telling you about that. I will do my best to get it read and an enjoyable time and get a review of it up sooner than later, because I do want to be able to discuss it with you guys in detail, spoiler free, of course. But yeah, so anyway, sorry I've been away for so long. For those of you who enjoy these videos, I really appreciate your existence in my world. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Peace.